You'll note that we also put the operations update earlier on, so Mr. Salters wouldn't have to go at the very end. But we also have Mr. Casey Calhoun, one of our great middle school principals. Been middle school heavy tonight on our presentation, so we're excited about that. But Mr. Calhoun is going to walk us through a process that he's had and he's been working on about an opportunity to rebrand. If I can review, I don't want to step on your presentation, but if you'll recall in a previous board meeting, we talked about using this opportunity as an opportunity to rebrand Lexington Middle School. And so, Mr. Salters, if you want to introduce him, we'll get started.
Thank you, Dr. Little. And this evening, I'm pleased to kind of tag team this with Mr. Calhoun. I did see a picture of him earlier today standing beside a birthday cake. So he's given some precious time to us this evening on a pretty special day, I believe, so we appreciate that. Just demonstrates his dedication and commitment to the middle school students in the Lexington area, so appreciate that very much. We are kicking off this evening a conversation with you guys for first reading about the idea of potentially renaming the new facility that we've been calling the Lexington Middle School Replacement. As you recall, under Administrative Rule FF-R, the board has the responsibility to oversee the naming of facilities, and so that falls in your purview. So that's why we're having this conversation here tonight. And Mr. Calhoun has spent a lot of time over the last year and a half or so. It's really since the 18 referendum passed since November, collecting feedback and some solicited and some unsolicited. And so he's going to talk with you about that process now.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you, board. Just thanks for hearing me tonight, and real excited about this. We've heard a lot about the nitty-gritty of what it means to operate a school in COVID in a district, and I mean, you heard a lot about that tonight. I get to talk about the new and coming ahead, which is really cool. You saw pictures earlier. So I just want to remind you of why we're kind of even having the conversation. I presented to you once before, but as Beechwood opened and we became Beechwood and Pleasant Hill, went to Lexington, fed Lexington High School, all of a sudden Lexington Middle and Meadow Glen Middle, now solely feed, outside of those special exceptions, solely feed River Bluff High School. And so the conversation at my school, particularly as the Lexington Middle School Wildcats, became this kind of weird thing of, well, now you're the Lexington Middle Wildcats, but now we're like, all of our families are buying Gator gear now. And so as that kind of conversation started, we began to have this conversation of, well, would it be appropriate for us as this new building comes, and is it to rebrand? And so we began to have that conversation. We've collected that feedback through our community members with SIC, our PTOs. Really, I get that a lot. I tell you where a lot of that feedback comes from is when I'm at athletic events, which happens, all the time, and parents are coming in and, they do give me that unsolicited feedback around, hey, really looking forward to you moving forward that process and that kind of thing. But we certainly gathered it other ways too. Students and our student families, and as well as we did that through that sixth grade that we will probably get into the building, and then obviously have had this conversation with our staff. And the majority of our feedback here, and I said before, about 80% support a new vision and brand for the Lexington Middle School, support us moving forward with a new name and a new. We've kind of recently gone through kind of a revisioning process to align our vision statement with the districts and that fair process. So it's just an opportunity for a lot of new and a refresh at Lexington Middle. Some takeaways that we have seen from this that I really want to mention to you guys is at every step of the process, I hear about the honoring of the history of Lexington Middle / Lexington High and what that building has meant. And Lexington Middle has meant to so many different people. Every group that we talk to absolutely believes that how do you honor that history while recognizing the fact that we kind of want to rebrand that. And so Matt Warren and I have had plenty of conversations so far about things that we're going to like. What are the things on campus that we need to like honor in history? There's a tree that was planted for a student there at one time. There's a couple other little pieces. They're just things that we have identified that say, hey, this is a part of like the history of this school, this building in our district. So let's make sure we honor that as we do move forward.
Mr. Calhoun, I'm pretty sure
yes.
there's a portable that was there when I was in 7th grade. So if you could keep that portable as well, so.
Yeah.
We might need it at Pleasant Hill Elementary, just say.
So anyway, that was just a big part. And so as we have begun this process, like figuring out how to maybe as we do rebrand and think about that is like incorporating the history into who we are has been certainly a big part of our conversation. Kind of researching the area. This was kind of out of my purview into Mr. Warren and Mr. Salters and kind of asking Lexington County historians and that kind of thing. We really, I know, and I think it was Centerville, there was some usage of some history and old school and that kind of thing. So I think that was it just wasn't anything significant for the property, for the right, specifically for where we were that we could see would be worth, hey, we really need to use this as a part of our process. So that was something I did want to mention. And then, so from there, we began to, obviously, if you're going to ask for feedback, you need to ask people, the stakeholders, like, give us some feedback on what names could possibly be and what do you think? And as we began to do that, we kind of developed 4 names that we came about. These were the most named or prevalent or made sense that we could really go forth and be a part of. And those 4 names are Lake Murray Middle School, Lakeside Middle School, North Lake Middle School, and then River Bluff Middle School were the 4 names that just either came to us that kind of made some sense in one way or shape or another, and that we would just kind of fit into what we were doing. And so that's kind of how we've landed here. I'll keep it short and sweet and let Jeff kind of finish, but that's kind of where we landed and with those 4 and how we developed them.
And so these names, as Mr. Calhoun alluded to, came really from the community and the process that he used. And, in looking at the names, as we discussed them, Lake Murray Middle School is a very appropriate name, being the school's next to Lake Murray. But we also, have situations now where we end up naming a school tied to an elementary school and or vice versa to a high school. And then we go to rezone at some point down the road, and that kind of creates some consternation among the community in that area. So we've kind of gone to the idea over the last few years that letting each school kind of stand on their own with their own brand and their own name. So we kind of shied away from Lake Murray and from River Bluff, obviously for the same kinds of reasons. And so, tonight for first reading, obviously this is a lot of feedback that we'll have with you guys over the next month, and then have some discussion again for second reading when, if you choose to move forward with this. We're proposing Lakeside Middle School as the name of the school. This happens to be an early rendering of the facility. And I think, Mr. Collin, you want to speak about the LMS? And
this was another piece that we've really talked about, that this would give us this cool connection to, that we're changing names and that kind of thing. If you move forward with this, it would keep us as LMS. And I think people in our building and our community can see a need for that, but really it keeps a connection I think would be strong.
I think that'll solve a lot of problems too.
Yes, sir.
So that's what we're proposing tonight as a first reading. Obviously, the new facility would bring with it some new athletic colors as we rebrand, and a new mascot, which would go through a process we've used with community input and student, staff, parent input as well. And that would be down the road. And so we offer this name to you this evening, and look forward to any feedback or conversation you guys might would have with this prior to next month's meeting. Happy to answer any questions for you.
That's actually pretty interesting. I was thinking y'all were going to go with, in the community, go with River Bluff, but I see now why you would shy away from that because of, rezoning and different things like that. But there actually is a pretty good tie between Lakeside and River Bluff. I mean, there's, if you think about just the orientation of how it would look. So, well, that's interesting. And the LMS tie is really neat. And Emery and I actually were in the same portable, and it is still there. So.
As long as they don't drain the lake.
We got bigger problems if that happens.
Mr. Calhoun, thank you so much, and thank you for your leadership on this project and working us through what this might look like. I know they're excited. When we first broke the news that this was going to happen, we were in that parent meeting, and they didn't want to know anything else other than, can we start buying Gator stuff for our kids? They're very excited about that middle school being rebranded away from the Wildcat and towards more in line with the Gator. So that's gonna. We're not done with that process yet, but it'll be a good process for sure. Thank you for doing that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have.